You're listening to DraftKings Network.
Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. With the price of just about everything going up during inflation, we thought we'd bring our prices down. So to help us, we brought in a reverse auctioneer, which is apparently a thing.
Mint Mobile Unlimited Premium Wireless. How to get 30, 30, bit to get 30, bit to get 20, 20, 20, bit to get 20, 20, bit to get 15, 15, 15, 15, just $15 a month? Sold! Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
$45 up front for 3 months plus taxes and fees. Promo rate for new customers for limited time. Unlimited more than 40 gigabytes per month. Slows full terms at mintmobile.com.
This episode is brought to you by Experian. Are you paying for subscriptions you don't use but can't find the time or energy to cancel them? Experian could cancel unwanted subscriptions for you, saving you an average of $270 per year and plenty of time. Download the Experian app. Results will vary. Not all subscriptions are eligible. Savings are not guaranteed. Paid membership with connected payment account required.
Welcome to the Big Suey, presented by DraftKings.
Why are you listening to this show?
The podcast that seems very similar to the other Dan Le Batard podcast.
I'm sorry, I'm not going to apologize for that.
In fact, the only difference seems to be this imaging.
I have been tempted in restaurants just walking past tables to grab somebody's fries that if they're just there. That hasn't happened to you guys?
I've done it.
And now, here's the marching man to nowhere, Fat Face, and the habitual liar.
I do not know why it is that Chris Cote has returned. I wanted him speed walking, and I insist that he be speed walking. So just explain to the audience here, Chris, because for some reason you think yourself an accomplished speed walker. You were watching the Olympic event. You were telling us that it's not that hard to do, that you just sort of jog with your upper body and walk with your lower body, and you think you can be an Olympic speed walker of some sort.
You get the hips cooking. And yeah, Dan, it's something I did back in high school when they had to run a mile. I'd be like, I'm not running. I'll do the speed walk. And I did it faster than most people running. So it's something I've done many a time.
All right, so go outside and you can do this.
I'm still tired from doing it last segment.
Well, that's fine. Okay. As punishment for the flying carcasses, 12 minutes of it, and then you can return next segment. I want you doing it throughout the Jemele Hill segment. I want it as a picture-in-picture in the lower half of our screen as we talk to Jemele about important journalistic and societal things. Jemele, thank you for making the time for us. I desperately want to find the funny in yesterday, but it's hard to do. So let's just start. You were not at the NABJ convention. I assume you're a member of NABJ. You didn't think it was a good idea for them to do this, or after having seen what it's become, do you think it's a better idea because of how he embarrassed himself? I didn't think NABJ embarrassed itself.
Can I just say the speed walking is exquisite? Because I'm looking at his form. I'm like, not bad. not bad at all. I mean, he's a little shaky around in that love seat, but that's okay. Yes, I am a member of NABJ. I've been a member since 1992. I actually joined when I was in high school. So I've been with this organization a long time. I was their Journalist of the Year in 2018. And I have to say, I'll be totally candid, Dan. Initially, I was torn about whether or not this was a good or a bad idea. And the reason I was torn about it was because on one hand, I certainly understand all the concerns. Like you don't want to platform people who lie as easily, as Donald Trump does. I mean, he lies like most of us take in air, but he's also running for president and he's the Republican nominee. And in a couple months, he could be president. So I wondered if there was some level of journalistic responsibility to show people exactly who he is. Because one thing I've discussed with a lot of my friends in journalism, a lot of us tend to hang out with each other. We're into politics. We're up on what's happening. We're highly informed about everything. We assume everybody else is too. And that's not to suggest, and at this point, people haven't heard of Donald Trump. They've heard of him. A lot of them know how he is. But there's also a swath of people who have never seen it, right? And it's kind of like, this is probably it's not the greatest analogy, but I'm going to go ahead and go with it anyway. It's kind of like when we started having very serious conversations about domestic violence. A lot of people know that domestic violence was a huge problem in our society. But until they saw what it looked like on video, and certainly now that we're a video-centered society, did they not get the seriousness of what was happening? So I wondered if there was some responsibility as journalists, like, no, you don't normalize the nonsense. But at the same time, you have to show people this is the nonsense so that they fully understand what's at stake in the election. But so I was a little torn about it. But as the details came out, and as it was clear that, frankly, NABJ leadership completely failed, they weren't transparent with their membership. And on top of that, to find out that when it came to Vice President Kamala Harris, that they weren't accommodating. Today is the funeral of Representative Sheila Jackson Lee, who is somebody who's very well known, very much has been a beacon for the Black community. And a lot of dignitaries are attending her funeral, which is why Kamala Harris could not be there in person. But she offered to do a Q&A virtually. And for NABJ to turn her down in this particular election year, I thought it made them look very poorly. And of course, I heard a lot of reports and just talking to people, like Fox News has been a major contributor, financial contributor at NABJ at this year's convention. I know they have in past conventions, but certainly they have been a significant one for this year. So you start adding up 1 + 1 = 2. Then on top of that, you have, the fact that Donald Trump was allowed to pick somebody to be on this panel that we saw yesterday. It's, my thinking is, when somebody like him, who has no credibility in the Black community at all, despite all these numerous terrible media stories about him gaining support, he doesn't have that kind of support in the Black community. And certainly what he said about Black journalists and Black people in general, he doesn't deserve any. Somebody like that does not deserve to call their own shots at the largest minority journalist convention in the country, for NABJ to be the largest minority journalism organization. So he doesn't deserve that. But I did wonder about, like, should we do something in terms of showing people exactly what this man is about? But seeing how that interview unfolded and everything that's coming out since, this was not a win for Donald Trump. But this was a much bigger loss for NABJ, given how everything unfolded, and certainly with how the membership feels about what they did. Because Donald Trump will be long gone. He may not even be president, but your membership, the soul of your organization, they're going to be there. And that's who you should heed and listen to. And a vast majority of the membership was against this even happening.
Do you believe the NABJ membership will vote out leadership come election time?
I do. I mean, I don't think this is something that is going away. I mean, there were numerous calls by the membership for the current leadership to step down. The president of NABJ, Ken Lemon, the executive director, like, a lot of people thought that it was that the only way this can somehow be rectified is if they lose their position in NABJ. And I can't say I blame them for feeling that way. And look, I realize that, a lot of people are talking about that interview. And if the idea was to get, for lack of a better word, clickbait for the convention to be talked about, they certainly achieved that. But to lose the respect of your membership as leaders, that is the worst thing that could possibly happen. And it compromises your ability to lead going forward.
Let me ask you, in the diminished state of journalism, Jemele, at least in part because he personally has taken a hatchet to it by just saying fake news and rallying the American people around that as a platform. Doesn't it pass for journalism what they tried to do? Like, the execution of what they attempted, coming out of the gate with facts, asking him difficult questions. I thought journalism in its diluted state was done, and people were shown in the light how Donald Trump reacts to questioning that's difficult, and also saw his disdain about being questioned by Black women particularly.
Well, that's why I said it wasn't a win for him at all. And, the thing is, it's one thing when you show clips of Donald Trump at one of his rallies, and he didn't sound any different at NABJ than he sounds on a daily basis. The difference is the crowd, and the difference is the type of questions being asked. At a rally, he's just able to just go and riff and go unfiltered, and you got people cheering. And while if you pay attention to what he's saying, it's certainly horrendous. But I think it's different based off the environment and the setting. And to your point, Dan, in this setting, being questioned by Black women, many of which he has insulted, hello, me being one, right? And also April Ryan, who is a Black political journalist, also a former journalist of the year, just like me, Abby Phillip, Yamiche Alcindor. Like, there's a long list of Black women journalists that he has said very insulting things about. And I did find it valuable that the very first question he was asked at the gate was to account for that, account for what he said about Black people in general. And it was a simple question, a valid, a legitimate question, to your point about was journalism actually being done? And to which I say yes, which was, you want Black people to trust you to be leader of this country when you have denigrated the community, you have denigrated some of the most prominent members of the community, and generally talk to Black people with such a low disdain. Why the hell would we want you as leader? Like, sell us on why we should ever think that somebody like you is fit to lead not just America, but our community in particular that is facing very specific, very real, disproportionate problems. And you see how he reacted, which is, again, normal for him. But I think for a lot of people who were watching, I think they were jarred. And at least from what I heard back from people who were there, even the journalists who have seen this song and dance before, but never been in the room when it's happened, even they were jarred by seeing just what a buffoon this man is, and how even in that setting, he didn't even have the common sense and the decorum to tone down how he normally talks. I'm glad he didn't, because he is who he is, and we can't say he's misled anybody in any sense. He has shown exactly who he is. And if people can't see the difference between these two candidates, I don't know what to tell you, but that was certainly on display yesterday. I mean, there was, even though, Darren, you said at the beginning, it's hard to find some humor in it, but there were just some moments where, you almost did have to chuckle in amusement, like, this is a shit show. What is going on?
Chris Cote, you're going to need to keep it moving. You're not doing the punishment correctly. Your form has gone to hell. Roy, what do you have for Jemele?
Pebble in my shoe.
Jemele, how would you judge the performance of the panelists?
I thought overall they did a okay job. And people have to remember, too, that he was apparently pulled early, and probably because his team saw the direction, felt the direction this was going, and it was not going well in any regard. As I said a few moments ago, I had some serious questions about Harris Faulkner being part of the panel, because she's a very Trump-friendly journalist. And, just her network in general. We know how they treated Trump. And part of the reason why he's in this position is because they have co-signed a lot of his lies. They lied to their own viewers. That's why they're paying out nearly $1 billion. But I thought there were a lot more important questions that certainly could have been asked. But I'll give Rachel Scott in particular, I believe that's her name, and I apologize if that's wrong.
It is. Yes, it is. The ABC news correspondent. I thought she was excellent. Like, placed in a difficult position with a man that is insulting you right there in your face. Impossible spot.
Impossible. But I thought she really handled herself extremely well. But a lot of the questions that people wanted him to account for, I thought were generally asked. And the other young lady, I thought she did a good job, particularly in bringing up Sonia Massey and her unfortunate murder.
Let's play the sound for Jemele that I believe is the most seismic of the sound to come from the entire thing. I was surprised by how casually flippant this particular thing was said.
She was always of Indian heritage, and she was only promoting Indian heritage. I didn't know she was black until a number of years ago when she happened to turn black, and now she wants to be known as black. So I don't know, is she Indian or is she black?
She has always identified as a black woman. She went to a historically black college.
I respect either one, but she obviously doesn't, because she was Indian all the way, and then all of a sudden she made a turn and she became a black person.
I mean, Dan, do you know how racist you have to be to sit there in the company of thousands of black journalists as a white man and tell black people who deserves to get called black? Now, that's what he's saying publicly. What do you think his conversations about Kamala Harris or any Black people, not named Ben Carson probably, are like in private? And that, again, to your point earlier, I think if there's value, and I put air quotes around value in what happened, is so that people can see, again, this is who you're dealing with. This is who you are saying deserves the mantle of being the president of this country. And it's so funny, though, Dan, because he positioned that as if there was some advantage to her telling people that, like, that she's Black. And by the way, Kamala Harris, just so everybody knows, has always claimed to be Black. She's claimed both her Black heritage and her Indian heritage. The woman went to Howard and she's an AKA. She wasn't trying to hide and run from being Black. All right. Those are two of the blackest things you could ever do. Be an AKA and go to Howard. All right. If she wanted to avoid this whole Black thing, she ain't going to Howard. All right.
It's a poor job of hiding.
You know what I'm saying? I'm just like, nah, she wouldn't be there if she was trying to distance herself from that part of her lineage. And what's hilarious is him trying to position this as if her Blackness became like some calling card for her to be able to rise politically or even to be in the position that she's in. And it's just part of the overall mentality that him and people like him are trying to sell to the American people, is that, Black people have all these advantages and look at them, they're using it politically. I'm like, there's never been a Black woman who's been in her position politically. She's the first Black woman to be vice president. If it was such a advantage as Donald Trump is trying to sell people on, why haven't there been a litany of Black women who have been vice president? Or why hasn't there already been a Black woman who is president of the United States? So clearly it is not the advantage that he would like to sell. But you can already see what his agenda is, what his strategy is that he is going to, him and his surrogates and even his vice president, who, by the way, that was a funny part. Every time they brought up J.D. Vance, you would have thought that Donald Trump had never met that man. I was like, he just picked him for VP. He was like, oh no. His entire attitude was like, oh, I don't know him like that. Like, oh no, I don't feel the way he does. I was like, J.D. Vance is somewhere like, I mean, come on, man, you just picked me for vice president, and I wonder how he feels being married to an Indian woman. Yes, this is the person that you've attached yourself to. So it just kind of shows you, again, just a clown, and the level of racism that he is so easily sinks to is why I don't know anyone would ever doubt, what his real integrity and what his character, what it stands for. I mean, the entire time, this is supposed to be, if you're gaining that support among Black people, this is supposed that you claim to be gaining. This was supposed to be your time to give them a message about what you have to offer them as their president. And the only thing he could offer them is racism and bigotry, because he spent so much time in that conversation making sure that he told Black people that migrants and undocumented workers were stealing their jobs. And again, funny but not funny, when he suggested that migrants were crossing the borders to steal journalism jobs, I was like, oh, this is a new one. I did not realize that the people crossing the border were sitting up here trying to be journalists, that they're trying to take our jobs. And so when he was asked about a Black job, and he was like, any job, I was like, oh, so they're coming over here because they're trying to work for a local newspaper and get paid maybe $40,000 a year. Okay, that's the job they're signing up for. That's what they're running to the border for, is to become journalists. Like it was really at times I was watching Dan, and as many rallies as I've seen, I just could not believe that this was somebody who actually is running for president and has a chance of winning it. I keep reminding myself, and I remind other people, remember, it's Joe Biden that was forced out of the race for being unfit, not Donald Trump.
Well, one, in this country's history, there have been examples of when Black people became politicians, white people came in and burned down cities. And two, they said Kamala hates Jewish people. I guess they haven't really checked out who her husband is. I would say,
did they not check, or did they not know about the second gentleman? Okay.
Jemele?
Yeah, I mean, it's unfortunate that like we've gotten to this point in our political discourse. But I'm hoping that this election will be another referendum on what we don't want. Because the last 3 elections, we've literally had to fight for the soul of this country. And this is another one where it's being challenged and tested. And it's just certain things that just as Americans that we should say, no, we're not standing for that. And Donald Trump is that person. Like, this has got to be something that everybody has to be united about. Like, we can tolerate, we can have a lot of things, and there's a lot of problems in this country for sure. Can't have that. That's not helping.
She's a Meadowlark advisor. You can find her on YouTube at It's Jemele Hill. Jemele, good catching up with you. You'll be happy to know that this segment went so long, Jemele, that I heard through the walls Chris Cote yell, "Oh, for the love of God!" because he's getting very tired out there. I see that he stopped. Like, what?
Yeah,
unacceptable.
How are you supposed to? That is very unacceptable. Where's your competitive instinct, Chris? Man, this is sad, man. That's pathetic.
It is pathetic. Thank you, Jemele.
All right, take care.
Folks, the Dan Le Batard Show is sponsored by BetterHelp. What are your self-care non-negotiables? Maybe you never skip leg day or therapy day. When your schedule is packed with kids' activities, big work projects, and more, it's easy to let your priorities slip. Even when we know what makes us happy, it's hard to make time for it. But when you feel like you have no time for yourself, non-negotiables like therapy are more important than ever. If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist and switch therapists anytime for no additional charge. Self-care and therapy work hand in hand to support mental health. While therapy provides professional guidance and support, self-care empowers individuals to take active steps towards their well-being outside of therapy sessions. Never skip therapy day with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/DLB to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/DLB.
When you're hiring for your small business, you want to find quality professionals that are right for the role. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to help find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. As Meadowlark Media continues to grow as a content studio, we strive to hire only the best and most qualified candidates. Thankfully, with LinkedIn, they have made it easy for us to find them. LinkedIn isn't just a job board. LinkedIn helps you hire professionals you can't find anywhere else, even those who aren't actively searching for a new job but might be open to the perfect role. In a given month, over 70% of LinkedIn users don't visit other leading job sites. So, if you're not looking on LinkedIn, you're looking in the wrong place. On LinkedIn, 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. Hire professionals like a professional on LinkedIn. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/prep. That's linkedin.com/prep. Post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply.
Dan Le Batard.
Are the stakes that high that if Angel Reese loses to Caitlin Clark, you need to start over again as a race?
Stugotz.
I don't know that we have to necessarily start over, but it might have to be, it will be a Black people's meeting, an important one that will be called the next day, where we might have to put some things on the agenda and get it on the table.
This is the Dan Le Batard Show with the Stugotz.
I do not know about the rest of you. I am very bad at math. There are any number of things that happen in mathematics that confuse me, and so there's a story in front of me that I simply do not understand, which is that the armed services, a report that the armed services wants a $6 million refund from The Rock and the UFL. They paid them $11 million. So I don't know what they got for the $5 million, but they're asking for a $6 million refund because not only did they not get any new recruits from the advertising that they were doing with The Rock and the UFL, but they also somehow lost 38 recruits. And that part I'm simply not understanding. You're
not alone in that, Dan. I'm really trying to wrap my head around how they land on the number of people that decided, I was enlisted, but this partnership between the U.S. Army and the UFL, it just doesn't sit right with me, and I'm now out.
I was willing to die for my country, but not now.
No, not after Birmingham Stallions versus St. Louis Battlehawks. I am out on that because I just can't get with this San Antonio Brahmas game. I don't understand how this happens, and it seems as though both parties are trying to avoid litigation. I read something on military.com about this, and I was just made more interested in, there's been a couple of high-profile bad marketing ideas by the U.S. Armed Forces. In fact, it was like the people that kind of forced the NFL's hand when it was exposed how much money the armed forces were giving the NFL just. It
was $5 million that they were shamed into giving back. The NFL was shamed into giving it back
for patriotic displays.
For Sundays to have America celebrated and the American military celebrated, they were paying $5 million for that.
So, like, the articles that I've been reading keep citing a National Guard advertisement that they did with NASCAR as like the barometer for bad deals by armed forces in sports. But it seems no matter how bad, there doesn't really appear to be a partnership that's been working for the armed forces in sports, but that hasn't stopped them from continuing to go to the well. Now, I understand the UFL, and I understand targeting someone that's watching the Brahmas on a Friday night, maybe, especially with what the TV ratings suggest. I just, once again, am puzzled at who was in charge of doing the head count on
38.
Who was there because of the UFL, and how they landed on it's minus 38 people that are here because of the UFL.
Well, part of the article I read said in regards to the amount of money they want back now, the Army expected The Rock, who's a co-owner of the league, to tout the Army in 5 social media posts. He has almost 400 million followers, so they were valued at $1 million each. But according to the report, he didn't fulfill his end of the deal and made only 2 Army-related posts, including none since April.
So do you think like 7 people that were enlisted were like, where's this tweet? I'm out.
How much easy money are you making if you can just not do those posts when you get paid that much for those posts because you just have that? Did you say 400 million followers is what The Rock has on all his?
Well, 396.
38 fewer recruits for the U.S. Army. I do understand going after the demo of sports fans in order to try and recruit. You're going to get a lot of young, testosterone-filled males. Chris, are you okay?
Cramping. My ass is on fire right now.
Whoa.
What is happening with you?
I can't feel the back of my ass. Like my legs, my thighs, I just can't feel it. It's all numb.
From power walking.
I feel like I just got an epidural.
From power walking.
Yeah.
Then you wouldn't
2 straight segments and
be able to feel anything.
The longest, I just said I can't feel it. I can't feel anything below my hips.
Got it.
That was the longest segment I've ever, like wrap it up.
It was long.
Jesus.
It did run long. And it ran long, and you walked short. Like, you didn't even finish it. You were out there. I saw at one point, I looked up, and you were dancing. Were you flamenco dancing at one point?
At some point, I was just like, I'm going to work in a salsa here. Because it's kind of like the same, I learned. It's kind of similar, the salsa and speedwalking.
The hips, a lot of hips.
Let's get something straight. Is your ass on fire, or can you not feel your ass? Where is your ass right now?
Yeah, I can't feel it. I heard it, but I didn't feel it.
I understand what the U.S. Army is going for, because there have been several times where I've been watching Houston Roughnecks versus Arlington Renegades, wondering aloud, what am I doing with my life?
I would love to know from you guys, because military spending is famously ridiculous and excessive. In fact, I would say that there is no example that I can give you of things being overpriced that is better than the American military, reportedly paying $800 for a toilet seat or whatever. Can you guys find me the most ridiculous examples of military spending?
I imagine we're going to get a lot of things back that are better than the Marlins payroll.
What I think I went low on toilet seat. Like I famously associate the military with overpaying for toilets because of a scandal I don't know how many years ago where I was reading about the military, and I didn't understand the basic math and basic economics of how it is that our country could spend so much on military spending and have it be that inefficient, because it's famously inefficient spending. And I don't feel like the armed services would need the UFL in order. Like, I don't even understand how you get in a marketing meeting where you say, here's what we're going to do. We're going to go after the UFL and The Rock because The Rock has a bigger following than we do. Because The Rock has more followers than we do.
And this is bad publicity for The Rock. And we know what happened the last time there was bad publicity for The Rock. We got a banger of a storyline. And with SummerSlam right around the corner, this is a perfect time for The Rock to come back as a final boss and set us up for the road to WrestleMania.
Why would The Rock fail to do his couple of military posts if you just got to do 5 for $11 million?
It's because you're just, well, I did read that article, and it sounds like it's not an entirely buttoned up operation around Dwayne The Rock Johnson, but I would say that when you have that much money, maybe social posts fall by the wayside. I can see how that one falls through the cracks.
But if you're such a man who's interested in the love of the American people and specifically the easy love you can get by being someone who supports our servicemen and women. Which
and clearly with great sources. Remember, he's the one that told us that Osama bin Laden was dead.
That is correct. He has access to some of our most trained assassins and did indeed end up breaking that news for us. Chris, what is the status of Tony, who we have sent out into South Florida to see if he can find a fan who can name a single current Marlins player? Before the show, we were talking about it, and somebody actually had the audacity to say, we have to take Jake Berger off the board. As if Jake Berger is too obvious, and so makes the whole game too easy. Is Tony going to have money? Is he going to be able to give a cash prize to somebody who correctly guesses or gets the name of a Marlin?
He is going to Our Betters right now, which is right across from what park? Where there's going to be a
Tropical Park.
Right across from Tropical Park, and we're going to put a $20 bill in his hand and just give it to the first person that can name a Marlin. So that'll be coming in the 11 o'clock hour.
Our Betters, where Ron McGill is a Hall of Famer that Greg Cote makes fun of their Hall of Fame. He's going to the hot dog place to see. That's a pretty. You're put it on the poll, please, Juju, at Le Batard Show. Are you more likely to find a baseball fan at a hot dog place?
Core memory for me was going randomly to Our Betters in 1996 and purchasing a stuffed rat for the Panthers Cup run.
I appreciate you bringing up the Panthers because I understand that we have some Barkov video and audio as the Panthers continue to party all over the world with their beloved trophy. Does this video that we have here, in which Barkov is clearly being introduced by Chris Whittingham, does this video here include the Stanley Cup, or does it not include the Stanley Cup?
I don't believe the Stanley Cup is pictured, but what you're seeing is an arena filled with people from Barkov's hometown in Finland, there to celebrate Barkov Day in this city, his day with the Cup. In fact, I think the Cup presently is in Finland, and all the Finnish players have decided to celebrate their day in their homeland. And to say that Barkov got a hero's welcome is an understatement. They prepared one hell of a banger of a song for him.
Kapteeni Aleksander Barkov!
How good does that have to feel for him, and just the passion around the world for this trophy, this particular trophy? It's so much bigger. It is so much bigger everywhere outside of the United States.
He is also just like he's such an outlier for a captain. He's we mentioned the stat during the Cup run. He is the first captain of a Stanley Cup winning team to have never been in a fight. You remember from the Bruins series, Marchand tried to have a go at him and Sasha just laughed. That is not his style. He's not vocal, and in previous years that was a source of frustration for Panthers fans, but he just decided to lead by example, and by doing so, arguably a top 2-3, perhaps maybe even the best two-way player in the world right now. he is also really cute. He's just adorable.
Well, he's one of those lead by example captains. You know, he's not going to give a rousing speech in the locker room or anything like that. He's going to go out and do what he does.
Can we cover the history of South Florida and talk a little bit about players who have done more for their reputation on the spectrum of how it is that you felt about them and then they win, and how it is that you end up feeling about them? Because the championship does so much for the legacies of these people. Alonzo Mourning did more good for his reputation and legacy coming off the bench during a championship run than he did starring at the middle of everything he was doing for the Heat. Because when you give the fans that kind of feel good, the memories that last a lifetime, the memories that get passed down to your children, you get to completely reinvent yourself. I'm not kidding you when I tell you that all I knew of Barkov for the first parts of his career with the Panthers, and it was several years, is you guys being frustrated with him. It's almost the only thing I associated with Barkov, that you and Chris and Roy would keep getting mad at him for not being more.
Yeah, for not doing more when they got eliminated, and then he started doing way more. And the team got over the hump. I think you went to the gold standard, which is Zoe. So much so that I still boo Zoe in public settings because I'm still hurt by him leaving initially. But Zoe, also in 2006, you can make an argument, was the more effective big man on a roster that featured Shaq. I would say Antoine Walker did a lot to save his reputation because Antoine Walker was despised, and he came up with a couple huge tippy-toe threes in 2006. And Braden Looper had an improbable stop in the 03 World Series. Nobody in that building trusted Braden Looper at all. So much so that I'm not even saying the vibes around Braden Looper locally are still good, because it was bad. He'd blow everything. But there was that one time where he didn't.
Wasn't it like the seventh inning, a bases loaded?
It was basically him and Jeff Weaver, and it was like, who's going to blow this? And it wasn't our guy.
I'll probably throw Alex Gonzalez into that discussion as well, because the NLDS, I mean, he was grounded into the double plays like it's
real good one. A lot of people didn't like Alex Gonzalez, and then he hit one of the biggest home runs, if not the biggest home run in franchise history.
It really is startling what championships will do in terms of making athletes a totally different history, giving them a totally different history than the one that they had. Right? Even if they're when you just mentioned Braden Looper, you're mentioning a bases loaded situation, a seventh inning situation. It wasn't even a ninth inning situation in a game that wasn't even game 7. Like, you're mentioning one moment for Braden Looper.
Yeah, huge Carl Pavano start in that game. I will say one player that earned nothing professionally because his heroics in college, he's a legend whenever he goes back to Kansas. But the attitude around Mario Chalmers is pretty much hilarious despite the championships he's won, even within his own team, where he gets laughed out of rooms routinely.
Where is Tony? Has he gotten to the hot dog stand yet? I expected him a half an hour ago to see if he could name or find somebody who can name a single Marlins player. What is that?
Oh, Dad, no, we got breaking news out of the association. Butler legend, Celtic great, Gordon Hayward has announced his retirement. Salute to that brother and his family. I hope he has a great post-career.
Where was he last? Was it
OKC?
Okay.
Wow, so, I'm learning that.
Did he end up even playing for them, or was he just?
He gave him some good veteran minutes, but it was a mid-season trade, and he never really got into the bulk of the rotation. But he still had a phenomenal time with those gentlemen in that locker room.
He totally ruined a 4th of July for me. Do you remember the 4th of July?
Yes.
We were held hostage by Gordon Hayward and his family as he pained over the decision.
I remember how much you criticized Pat Riley for swinging and missing on Gordon Hayward.
It probably would have. Look, Gordon, the career didn't go so great by making the decision. If he came over here, I think it would have worked out.
His career would have been fantastic. I think that Celtic squad had what it took to win a championship, but his ankle, that was one of the most gruesome injuries I'd ever seen live besides Kevin Ware in Louisville. Man, he should be commended for even coming back.
Remember Wade's reaction to it as it happened? Yeah, that's kind of like one of those where were you moments. It was a very gruesome injury.
I want to get back to military spending right now. Apparently, this is back from 2019. The Department of Defense spent $9,341 on a Wexford leather club chair for no apparent reason. And he also spent money on some lavish food. They spent $2.3 million on crab and lobster tail, respectively, and $293,245 on steak, which included ribeye, top sirloin, and flank.
I can beat that. In 2014, the military spent $84 million on erectile dysfunction medicine. Specifically, $41 million on Viagra.
What kind of party are you throwing with $2 million of crab and lobster?
And Viagra.
You need like $40 million of Viagra, brother.
Find me, if you don't mind, the most expensive toilet seat. I want to know what the most the military has spent on a toilet seat.
I saw something about a $10,000 toilet seat, but the only source was Chuck Grassley, so I'm trying to confirm that right now.
All right. We'll get to the bottom of our investigative report on the American military next.
Hey there, loyal listener. As you know, in listening to this show, we've been around for almost 20 years. It's going to be 20 years in September, and a lot has changed over those years. Not just the cast, but the locations we've been doing it from. We started out in Miami Gardens, went to South Beach, and now we're in downtown Miami. A lot has changed. One thing that hasn't is the great taste of Miller Lite, and the support Miller Lite has had for this show, which I'm very fond of. Another thing that hasn't changed is that it's less filling. So what is the best thing about the original light beer? Miller Lite sparked this debate way back in 1975, and we still haven't settled it. For me, it's the undebatable quality, great taste, and only 96 calories. You don't have to choose what's best. Miller Lite has great taste and is less filling. Tastes like Miller time. To get Miller Lite delivered right to your door, visit MillerLite.com/Dan, or you can find it pretty much anywhere that sells beer. Celebrate responsibly. Miller Brewing Company, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, 96 calories per 12 ounces. Fewer calories and carbs than premium regular beer. When you're hiring for your small business, you want to find quality professionals that are right for the role. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to help find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. As Metalwork Media continues to grow as a content studio, we strive to hire only the best and most qualified candidates. Thankfully, with LinkedIn, they have made it easy for us to find them. LinkedIn isn't just a job board. LinkedIn helps you hire professionals you can't find anywhere else, even those who aren't actively searching for a new job but might be open to the perfect role. In a given month, over 70% of LinkedIn users don't visit other leading job sites. So, if you're not looking on LinkedIn, you're looking in the wrong place. On LinkedIn, 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. Hire professionals like a professional on LinkedIn. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/prep. That's linkedin.com/prep. Post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply.